Hi, I'm Serena, and this is Ruben, our 4-month-old. And this is our sand that we're going to use in our floor and in our natural plaster. It's very precious stuff. So yeah, this needs to be moistened some more. This is the plaster that we're going to use. A lot of friends and even strangers who have just been interested in the natural building process, we've made this house happen. And without all that help, we wouldn't be where we are today. It's very accessible to people of all ages and backgrounds and physical abilities. It's very satisfying. Why should kids stop playing in mud? And why should we as adults not be able to get our hands dirty? And to create this, basically, it's amazing. It's like a living house.
Hi, my name is Brad, and we're in the process of building a house that makes use of mostly local, easily reproducible material, sustainable material. Let me tell you what some of those are there. So what we have here is our floor. These are seed trays that are from a local nursery just outside of Courtenay. And they have basically an Everest of these things that are completely unusable to them. And they habitually, regularly take them to the dump. And they welcome anybody to come and take them. But what we do here is we fill them with insulation. And then we put what's essentially a cob mixture on top of it that will form an earthen floor. So neither of us had very much building experience when we first started. I had a couple of construction jobs over the years, not very many. Maybe 10 years ago I took a 3-month carpentry course, but this is a long time ago and I didn't really learn too much about it. Serena taking the Mud Girls workshop was instrumental in us beginning the natural building part of it, and the post and beam, well, I just learned as I went.
So last year we came here and we started from scratch. There was nothing here where we're standing except lots of beautiful wild plants. And I came in with our shared tractor. I tried my best not to take away too much, and it was amazing to have that relationship with the land before and to see what the impact of an excavator can do. It was kind of devastating and I had to grieve a bit.
So after the site was cleared and our post and beam structure was put up, we needed to start on the foundation. And for the foundation, the cob, it needs a wide base, and we didn't want to go with concrete. So we decided to go with with what's called a dry stack stone foundation. Now all of this stuff is, some people call it urbanite, but it's really just kind of a fancy name for broken up pieces of rubbled sidewalk. So this is all going to a landfill. It's all sidewalk material. Now the thing that's really interesting about the dry stack is that, as its name implies, it's made with no mortar. And so every single stone that is placed on top of another needs to fit in such a way that if you stand on it and jump on it from any direction from above, it doesn't move an inch. And so it's very, very difficult to work with.
So this is amazing stuff that a lot of people use in their gardens, but we use it in our walls and in our floor as plaster and in our earthen cob mix in the final layer of our floor. So the great thing about it is its enzymes and the fibers. It creates strong binding action. And I mix this with fine sand and a clay slip, and together it creates an amazing glue-like plaster. The longer you let it sit, the more binding it gets. It ferments and creates like a glue. It's great. We have to grate it because it comes in these balls, and we need it to become more like this, which is digested hay.
Here we have an unplastered section of the cob, and this is what it all looks like originally. Our entire house isn't plastered yet, but you still see it's pretty rough, piece of straw still sticking out. When I rub my hand over it, it starts to erode it a little bit. You see the bits of sand in there still. And right here, this is the plastered section. There's one coat of plaster on it. In the end, it'll be a lighter color. But when you rub my hand over this, there's nothing that comes off, and it seals it right up, waterproofing it.
So one technique for mini windows is to find some bottles. Wine bottles, beer bottles, any kind of bottles can go into your walls and reflect the light and penetrate through and make a great aesthetic. So these ones aren't washed, but underneath the layer of mud are beautiful bottles, and once they're shined up, the light can come through and they create like mini windows with a stained glass effect, and they're free. The great thing about building with cob as well is that the walls are at least a foot thick, which allows you to create different concave areas in your walls, so you can add the bottles and create a different effect by shaping the walls around the bottles, and you could also create little shelves. I have an older son, and when he was this guy's age, I went to my first Mud Girls workshop. They are a natural building collective. When I attended this workshop, it was great because I left feeling like I could build my own home. I didn't know anything about building homes before that workshop, and I left feeling really confident. Another thing that I came out of that workshop with was that if you have a lot of time but not a lot of money, you can build your own home, no problem. But if you have a lot of money and not a lot of time, then the average Joe will just pay someone else to build their own home for them.
So what can normal people do to live more sustainably? In tract housing and in suburban developments, which is where most people in North America live these days, there's so many rules and bylaws that require you to build with certain materials and in a certain way that I believe that it's basically impossible to live sustainably in those kinds of areas. You could either secretively go around the bylaws, or you could move to a place. There's different places in the world that have more lackadaisical bylaws. So, sustainability is it's an interesting word. It's kind of a bit of a fancy word, a fancy way of saying salvaging in some ways, because part of doing things sustainably is finding other uses for discarded material, and so you're basically it's basically an awareness that you have. You're looking around for discard items or items that people consider garbage or no longer useful anymore. So, for example, even our deck, built with thick planks, used to be a bridge that was just going to go to the dump and wasn't going to be used anymore. So we salvaged it, or we made the bridge sustainable.
I really love this house, and I built it with my health in mind and the health and joy and happiness of my kids. This house is alive. It breathes, and there's even a sprout in the wall. So when it goes back to the earth, one day it is going to rot. Like everything, it's going to go back to the earth. I know that things will grow out of it. It comes from the land, and it's going to go back to the land.